So, you may have heard recently that Putin has now decided he is going to withdraw or at least claim that the Alaska purchase made by the US back in 1868, I think it was, something like that, when I think it was done. He's going to now declare that completely null. It is void. And guess what? Alaska is now part of now part of Russia. Sorry, Alaskans, you're Russian now. Is this actually gonna happen? Are Russian military units or Russian Marines suddenly going to be storming the beach of Anchorage? No, probably not. That's never ever really gonna happen. This whole announcement, and including Alaska, is just a bit of a fantasy. It's never gonna happen. But what is worrying? What is worrying was what also was else in that announcement. Because this has been the constant worry, the constant fear of what we have been saying since the war in Ukraine started. That if Putin wins or can get a victory out of this, he will take this as a sign that he could then potentially do this in other countries as well. The Baltic states, I was going to say Ethiopia then, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Those are big concerns in those countries because the exact same type of claims that Putin used to justify taking, the parts of Ukraine, possibly even more, again, should he have a victory, those countries could very well be next. And those, of course, would be NATO countries, putting essentially the alliance to the test. And even more worrying, you could have Donald Trump in the White House. So there are genuine concerns about this. So as funny as it is, as Putin saying, Alaska is, rightfully Russian, the big problem becomes what else was in this announcement and agreement. And specifically, Alaska is just a fantasy. What the real target is, as we're about to show you here, the real target is Europe, and especially former Warsaw Pact countries. So before we do go having a look into this, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, buy me coffee. And of course, as always, there is the YouTube donation link called the thank you button. You can, again, thank me for that on there. And of course, as always, there is the Pony Club you can join as well. So thank you very much for all those people who do help support the channel that way. And as well, you can always help support the channel by clicking the like and share button as well. So what has happened here? What is it that Putin announced? And more specifically, as I said, why is the real target Europe? Alaska, a fantasy. Certainly many Russian nationalists do see Alaska as sort of rightful Russian clay. But the reality is, taking back Alaska, very, very much a fantasy. But as we've said before in the opening, the big problem and the real target is Europe. So we're going to go into this and see what Putin said here and what the consequences of this could very well be for other Eastern European countries. And once again, why many of these Eastern European countries definitely want NATO to exist and want to be in NATO. So Russian President Vladimir Putin has signed a new decree relating to Moscow's historic real estate holdings abroad, a move that is interpreted by ultranationalist bloggers as a foundation for future revanchism against Russia's neighbors and even the US. So remember that. This is being seen as the green light almost to say we are going to retake our territory, or what we say is our rightful territory. So the decree signed by the president last week allocates funds for search, registration, and legal protection of Russian property abroad, including property in the former Soviet territories of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. So that's the big problem here, that funds are being allocated for the search, registration, and legal protection of Russian property abroad. That has a lot of implications for a lot of people living in, as we said, reaching, as we'll see, all the way into Germany. So, yeah, this is going to be one of those. This is going to be one of those worrying points, because this will be used, as we've said, if Putin sort of wins in Ukraine, this can be used to justify future invasions. So, Russia's foreign ministry and its presidential administrators, the Foreign Property Management Enterprise, are directed to carry out the work, ordered to find, register, and protect the property in question. And that's the big thing. Protect the property. What exactly do you mean by protect this property? And this was, again, we'll get into that a bit later. So, the Institute for the Study of War noted that the exact parameters of what constitutes our current or historical property were, of course, unclear. The Kremlin may use the word, quote, protection of its claimed property in countries outside its internationally recognized borders to forward its soft power mechanisms in post-Soviet and neighboring states, ultimately aimed at internal destabilization. And that's what I believe as well. That is what I believe this is really aimed at. Trying to destabilize and, quote, protect Russian property abroad. But again, from what we can see here, Russian property has a very, very big definition. A very big definition. One prominent ultra-nationalist pro-war military blogger framed the decree as a step towards the new territorial conflicts with Russian neighbors, including the US, saying that we suggest starting with Alaska, the two majors Telegram channel, which has over 530,000 subscribers, wrote. Beyond that, the blogger also wrote, and this is where the trouble becomes, because again, we're talking historical Russian clay here. They should also look to the Dnieper in Ukraine, Bessarabia, that's Moldova, and also parts of Romania as well, the Grand Duchy of Finland, so all the Finland pretty much, Armenia, Azerbaijan. I'd be very worried about why Armenia and Azerbaijan, why you were so friendly with Russia when they are basically saying, yeah, you used to be part of us. We're going to take you back now. Georgia, the Central Asian states of Russian Turkestan, but most of the Baltic provinces and a significant part of Poland. Again, you see why these countries are so terrified of a revanchist Russia. They are very worried about this. And the fact that Putin has signed this, and this has been seen as almost a green light to say, oh yeah, all that territory is now ours again. Forget Alaska. It's Europe, as we said, is the main target and aimed at trying to destabilize some of these post-Soviet states. So this is also where it gets even more worrying. So property can be searched in the German Democratic Republic and other Warsaw Pacts. Again, what do you mean by searched? And then what does that mean once they've searched them and said, yeah, this property used to belong to Russia? Then what? You see where this is going a bit crazy on these fronts. This, of course, was referring to the Cold War era parts of Germany and other Eastern European nations under Soviet control. An expedition, and this is where it gets also worrying, an expedition of combat legal defenders has already been sent out for Africa, it added, perhaps in a reference to Moscow's burgeoning Africa Corps. Putin had obviously previously downplayed the 1879 sale of Alaska to the US. He's called the deal, quote, inexpensive, and said that people should not get too worked up about it at the event. But some of his allies have suggested that Moscow should reopen this issue as a territorial dispute. The Institute for War said that such ambitions are, of course, implausible, but the reaction of the two majors speaks at the very deep-seated revanchist sentiment within the Russian ultranationalist community. There, the criticism of Moscow's war on Ukraine stems from Russia's failure to achieve its objectives, and Putin appears very hesitant to order another full-scale national mobilization. There's speculation that the Kremlin may begin a new round of mass mobilization after the March presidential election, which, of course, Putin is sure to win. The Russian leader has shown no sign of downgrading his maximist goals in Ukraine, and Kiev is preparing for a new major Russian offensive operation in 2024. So, here, the two main key takeaways. First of all, it's important, first of all, to make sure that Ukraine this year gets all the support it needs, both civilian and, of course, militarily as well. That must be an absolute guarantee, but also make for sure that our militaries are also possibly ready. Now, the likelihood of Putin going to attack another country right now, very, very slim. It's very unlikely that he could achieve that, considering at the moment everything at the moment is in Ukraine, failing spectacularly on that. So going after another country is not realistic at the moment. But what if after this year Putin sort of freezes the line of conflict and says, right, all this is ours, and then sort of digs in for the long haul to try and sort of, force, Ukraine to come to the table to basically say, all this is ours. Tough luck, guys. You're never going to take it back. Those are, of course, serious concerns of what we should be worried about this year. And a big reason why Ukraine will be able to retake a lot of that territory is because of Western weapons. So that is a continuing need that Ukraine has. It's also very worrying, of course, that, again, the Ukrainian aid package hold up in Congress, worrying for the fact that, again, what could happen potentially if Donald Trump wins. He is ultimately going to sort of, I think, abandon Ukraine and essentially throw them to the wolves should he get in. This is why, more so than ever, Europe really, really needs to come together and sort out its defense. Because when they say that all that is ours, this was the exact same part of justification that Vladimir Putin used in his opening speech when they went in to start the, quote, special operation in Ukraine. So, forget Putin's Alaska fantasy, because that is legitimately just a fantasy. But the whole point here really is aimed, I think, going into other countries saying that belongs to Russia, that's now ours, you don't have a right to live here. They'll chase people through legal disputes all up and down. They'll probably go in and maybe try to start buying historical property. So like the Russian state then owns sort of tower blocks and all kinds of stuff, and then they'll start causing problems in there. There's all kinds of stuff that this could stem from that Putin could use to sort of destabilize a whole areas of these Eastern European countries. And this is something that we should be aware of. And well, again, just as the State Department laughed when they heard about this, and their response was like, well, he's never going to get it back. We need to take the fact that this seriously, that Putin has found, or is at least targeting a way of what he thinks might be a way to try and destabilize Eastern European countries and hopefully get them to stop supporting the war, and of course destabilize them to maybe an extent where, well, these types of invasions could very well be possible. So yeah, it's worrying. It's very, very worrying. And I think even though sometimes a lot of people I've seen laugh at the idea of, oh, um, we need more people in the army, the navy, and etc. It's probably a real concern that we should be thinking about, given the fact of what Putin's ambitions are at the moment. So, as always, thank you very much for watching, and of course, as always, please do remember to click on the like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, to one off donation link called Buy Me Coffee. We can well buy me coffee. And of course, as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.